Integrating people can make or break an architectural visualization. In this lesson, I'll show you a practical way to place and scale people more convincingly in Photoshop. Let's jump in. The next thing could obviously be to try to integrate these humans. As you can see here, if we just zoom a little bit out and then press the V to the move tool, and then we can move it. So obviously these are too big, so we can press Ctrl T to get the free transform tool, and then we can scale them down from there, like this. Obviously you can see not only are the scale off, but the sun direction is also off, so we have to flip this. And you can either go to Edit and then under Transform, flip horizontally, then you can see all of a sudden the direction of the sun is much more correct. But what you also could do is make an action. I've made an action so you can see I can flip them very, very fast. That's a way of using Photoshop, not only for navigation, but also to kind of control layers and so forth. Again, I would like these to stand someplace down here. And oftentimes in architectural visualization, you use entourage, trees and cars and people and so forth to give the picture a sense of scale. So scale is very, very important because you want to show the size of the house. So a little trick I use, I would say in most projects, is to find a reference to scale from. So if you just press F to go out of the full screen mode, and then we have the picture here. We can double click there to load a picture, and then you can see under pictures here I have a file called heights, and the file looks like this. And this is a render from the same view as our visualization, where I have made a layer called humans, where I've placed objects of 1 meter and 75 centimeters, that's average human height. But I've placed objects in the scene and then rendered out actual heights from the exact view that we are looking in. So that if I drag this window out here and then I take this layer of 1 meter and 75 centimeters boxes and then drag them into the view, I can see, if we just for a brief second hide the humans there, we can see this is the layer. So you can see if we zoom in on these people up here, you can see that's their exact heights. They are more or less 175 here. That's 5'7" or 5'8" or something like that. You can see this guy fits perfectly that. And also here, this girl is also perfectly fitted. So the scale of these people here are perfect. Also the boys over here are perfectly fitted. Obviously, if there's a tall man, you have to have his head a little higher, but this is just a general guide of getting the scale correct. So you can also take this layer and then take the opacity a little bit down so you can see through. And then if you enable the human layers again, Control T for free transform, and then we can scale in. For example, here, this is the ground where this guy should stand, and then his height should be more or less 75, maybe a little bit larger because he looks like a little taller man than 175, but something like this, for example, and then enter, and then just hide this layer here. And then you can see these are now fitted. Maybe this guy is a little bit too tall over there for my likings. So in this coincidence, I'll use the free transform and then hold down the control key and then just drag this corner down here. You can see you can make him smaller and this guy has the same height. Obviously this is very skewed, so you also have to drag it a little bit into not skew too much, but this is obviously too much. I just take him down a little bit and then just push them a little bit to the right so that they don't get too skewed. And then just enter, and then you can see the scale of these humans are more or less on. If you, for example, take this texture here, we can just make a duplicate of this human texture here by holding down Alt and then just dragging a copy. You can also take this layer here and then just make a copy. Just drag it down on New, and then you have a copy of this layer. But let's just do like before, we hold down Alt and then drag a copy of this layer out. Remember that I just unlinked it, because if I haven't unlinked it, I would get the shadows also. But here we have the new layer, and you can scale it and you can do everything you want with it. Let's just say that we have these guys scaled down a lot. For example, for a background, let's say they should be good down here. So what if we just all of a sudden found out that, okay, we want to use these people over here also, or remove them here and then use them here instead. Then we can take these guys here, make a copy, and then scale them up again. And as you can see here, this upscale is very blurred, and that's because you have upscaled a very small layer of these people. So what you can do, and what is the preferred way to do it, is to make what we call a smart object. The way you make a smart object is that you have to unlink everything in the layer before you can make a smart object. So you select all the layers, you right click, and then you unlink the layers, and then you have 3 layers here, they are not linked. Then you take the human layer there and all other layers and select them and right click, and then go down to convert to smart object. And now you can see they groups the object in one. You cannot make a smart object by selecting all the 3 layers. You have to make a smart object for each and every layer. But just to show you the idea here, if you have made these guys a smart object, Photoshop take a reference out to the file so that they can upscale it in reference to the file, not in reference to the actual pixels. So for example, if we take these guys here and then just make them very, very small again, like that, and then use them, for example, down in the background of the picture. And then if we have to use them in the foreground again, at some point we can make a copy, and then we can scale them up again, more or less like this. And you can see they're still in a high resolution here. So that's the way that smart objects work. Another way that you can make a smart object is if we just double click there, and then we have the entourage and then the human 6, I think it was, and then we just drag drop them down here, and then we want to throw them into our picture on top of these. So we just mark this layer here, and then we go into this layer, and then we drag drop them into here, place them over the layer that you stand in. Then we have an image layer with very, very high resolution. And remember, you have to unlink them first. If you mark them all and then make a smart object, it merges shadows together. So you have to make a smart object for every layer there, convert to smart object, and then this layer, convert to smart object. And you can see there's a little smart object layer icon down in the right hand side corner, so you can see it's a smart object. And then we have smart objects of all these. Then you mark them, and then you link layers like that, and then you can free transform them like this. So you can see now we can make them very, very, very small. And then if we scale them up again, it looks pixelated, but when you press enter, you can see they are loaded in the high resolution again. So that's a smart way to always keep your objects and your entourage, your trees, your cars, your humans, your bushes, and so forth in the greatest resolution possible if you should scale them up a little bit. I found that this is a great technique in smaller pictures. If you have very large pictures, it can be quite hard for Photoshop to keep up. So I only have the very, very most important human textures in the foreground, for example, these girls, as a smart object. But it is a very smart way to keep people textures, for example, upscalable throughout the work process. If you found this video useful, the full course is available at Cadman.dk. Photoshop for Architects Basic. Link is in the description.